This is what you pay your quarterback for. This is where Brock Purdy has to earn his money, earn his keep. I'm not saying that Brock Purdy is Lamar Jackson or Joe Burrow or Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes. What I'm saying is that, obviously the talent that he was throwing to and had around him is probably not where it was a couple years back. So Brock Purdy has to elevate the roster. Brock Purdy has to show that you can win a Super Bowl on my back and on my arm.
Kirk Morrison on Willard Dibs, 95.7 The Game. Hey, Kirk, what's going on, man?
I'm doing great. How we doing today, fellas?
We're doing fantastic. We're wondering how Vegas is and sort of what you think. I don't know, like everyone's always talking about the same thing here in August. Like, what do you think is the difference between the way these two teams will approach this week and this game, knowing that the Niners are probably a little bit more of an established veteran team? Like, what do you think we'll see Saturday, philosophically?
Honestly, I don't think we see much. I think because of what we saw basically today here at the joint practices in Las Vegas, you got guys who got some good work throughout the day on both sides. I mean, both sides of the team. But more importantly, though, I think it was a situation where the 49ers came in banged up. I mean, that was the story. It was like as soon as they got off the bus, Kyle Shanahan's like, hey, look, we got 25 guys banged up. So we want to just kind of get through this practice, but more importantly, see where they're at as a team, guys that they may need to lean on a little more in terms of getting ready for week number 1. So just my assessment just off of the joint practice and what kind of came out of it was that the Raiders are still trying to solidify some position groups, and the 49ers are just trying to make it to week 1 healthy.
Is that a dangerous place to be in if you're the Niners? Because you're more likely to be a little bit tentative, aren't you, if you're trying to just avoid injury?
Well, not necessarily tentative, but you're trying to see guys that you are going to be able to lean on. We already knew that this draft class of Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch is, one of the, the biggest classes they've had in their time together. So they were going to bring in a lot of guys, and now those guys are going to be called upon to play. So you have to see what you have, and you've already mentioned it a little bit earlier, right? This is a experienced group of 49ers in terms of your front line guys. So how much do you truly want to see when you kind of know what they already can do? It's really about the guys who are new to the team that you need to see what they can do. I thought you got a chance to see that with the controlled practices today. But Saturday, I think, guys who are trying to prove and show that I can take what I've learned in the classroom on the practice field, I can bring it into game situations, and that's really your young players.
Kirk, I think one of the questions we're trying to get to is, are expectations around the Niners correct? They are tied for the 6th or 7th highest Super Bowl odds team in the NFL right now, and they do have a bunch of great players. But as Kyle Shanahan's been talking about, tons of injuries and tons of brand new rookies who will need to contribute. So what's your take on that?
I mean, this is what you pay your quarterback for. That regardless of what you have going on in terms of injuries or just the way that the team is being built and the rookies and all that, this is what you pay your quarterback for. This is where Brock Purdy has to earn his money, earn his keep. I mean, I know you guys have seen these. Everybody's done a tier, right? I'm surprised you both haven't done a tier of quarterbacks, right? Everybody's like, oh, here's your top tier, and here's tier 2, and here's tier 3. I'm not saying that Brock Purdy is Lamar Jackson or Joe Burrow or Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes. What I'm saying is that you're going to have to ask Brock Purdy to be a little more of those guys at the top that I just mentioned, all because of what you meant. So that's what I think the Super Bowl odds look at, is that who's that quarterback? Has he led you there before? Yes. Almost came into a victory, right? You go into overtime. That's what I'm just thinking right now as I look at it. The odds come from more about the quarterback and a team that still has some superstar all-pro talent that can bring along. How quickly do they bring along the rookies and first-year guys?
Forget the tiers part of it for a second, Kirk, but when you watch Brock Purdy, does he have the stuff to be the quarterback you're describing? Can he be good enough to carry this team if they have lesser talent?
You can win a Super Bowl with Brock Purdy. You can. And we've seen him, take a team to the Super Bowl. So we know that. My only question is that, obviously the talent that he was throwing to and had around him is probably not where it was a couple of years back. So, yeah, gone is Debo, and I don't know if 49er fans are going to miss him or not. We'll see. But, obviously Brandon Ayuk is going to be banged up for the early part of the season. We'll see what's about Jawan Jennings. But George Kittle and obviously Christian McCaffrey are going to have to be huge. Ricky Pearsall, hey, sorry, buddy, year 2, you got to handle it. So Brock Purdy has to elevate the roster. That's what I think I'm kind of getting to, is that when you pay a quarterback that kind of money, you have to elevate the rest of the roster. Now, it doesn't matter, right? We've seen Patrick Mahomes do it. We've seen, obviously, Josh Allen has done it last year when they trade away Stephon Diggs and all that. So with all this roster reconstruction, Brock Purdy has to show that you can win a Super Bowl on my back and on my arm. I can do that. I believe that he can. Now, it just depends on just how healthy this team is going to be, and can they get through a full season, unlike what we saw last year where it went bad. It went sideways pretty quickly at the end.
Kirk, you're a linebacker. I want to ask you about that spot with the 49ers and what you would have done in a perfect world, whether it is, Drake Greenlaw, who was coming off of an injury and they were chasing him in free agency, or what you feel about D. Winters, who is supposedly ready to step up and take that role alongside Fred Warner.
I was surprised it took D. Winters this long, though. Right, when I saw him at TCU when he was still in college, I'm like, man, this dude is a playmaker. And then when he gets drafted by the 49ers, you knew he was going to be the guy in waiting. And then at some point he would take over that linebacking core. Devondre Campbell last year comes in, and it was more because they didn't know about the status, obviously, of Drake Greenlaw, and we all know what happened with that. And then Greenlaw goes, to Denver. And at the same time, I'm saying it's D. Winters' opportunity. I know he can play, and he's got one of the great mentors who is going to be on the opposite side of him in Fred Warner. You're not going to pay that amount of money to two linebackers. You don't see that in the league, in the NFL. My position. You tell me a team that's going to pay two linebackers that kind of money, and look, this isn't Navarro Bowman and Patrick Willis, right? Don't get it twisted. Like, this is a young up and coming player who we'll see. He'll have an opportunity right now, but Fred Warner is still the guy, and he can bring D along. And if he plays, to the level that a lot of people would envision for him, it will give a little bit of relief to losing a guy like Drake Greenlaw, who was kind of let's call it the heart and soul of a defense, right? Who brought the intensity. And so who's going to replace that outside of Fred Warner and Nick Bosa? Yeah,
they're going to need that motivational leader. Maybe it comes from the coordinator who returns home, Robert Saleh. How important is it to have an experienced coordinator, especially with a young defense?
Well, it's just all about teaching. How you got to teach and get guys up to speed. It's very important, especially a guy who knows the fabric, who knows the culture, for the 49ers, and it's all about the buy-in. If you buy in, this is what's going to happen. You buy in, you're going to be put in some great situations, and you're going to make a ton of money. That's always, for my ears, I get excited about that if I'm a young player. And Robert Saleh has shown that, and I think that's the part that the young players are going to have to go in and just realize that, look, I am going to play. I'm not here just to wait around year or 2 years. No, Robert Saleh comes in with his expertise on that side of the ball, and I'm great to see him back where he kind of got started at with the Niners. Getting guys and putting them in situations to go out there and be successful. I mean, I don't know if Fred Warner's the same player without a coach like Robert Saleh, who comes in and finds a way for a guy who didn't play off the ball linebacker to go out and do it. So a lot of things that go along with it, and I think you have to be excited about what Saleh is going to bring to that defense. And more importantly, like you mentioned, the intensity for this team, right? D'Amico Ryans brought it, and I think it's back with Robert Saleh.
Kirk Morrison is with us, former NFL linebacker, broadcaster now, with us on Willard and Dibs 95.7 The Game. Kirk, I tell you what, you mentioned earlier in this conversation these quarterback tiers. You may have been referring to that article that came out in The Athletic earlier this week. So yeah. the 49ers schedule this year, I believe that if I've got this right, 13 of the 17 games will go against quarterbacks in Tier 3 or lower. Are we right or wrong for saying that this is a crazy easy schedule?
No, I would say consider what the 49ers schedule has looked like in the past, being a division winner or, the division winner, but more important, like, conference championship, Super Bowl. They've always played that first, second place type schedule. Now it's a little bit different. They're playing a last place schedule. I want to repeat that, man. They're playing a last place schedule. So you're going to play against some of the easier teams or teams from last year who weren't as good. And so the 49ers kind of have a little bit of an edge. At the end of the year, nobody's going to say, oh, they didn't play anybody. Just tell me what your record is. And so I think it's a little bit of relief for the 49ers this year than maybe in past years where they had to go through the gauntlet of some of these quarterbacks. This year, a little bit different, and if there's a year I want to break in a lot of young players and kind of retool my roster, definitely this would be the year for the Niners to do that with that schedule.
What's the toughest part of the learning curve of a rookie having to play defense in the NFL?
Angles, knowing your ability and the guy across from you's ability. That's what it is. I mean, a lot of times in college, you're able to, take a false step if you're a linebacker or miss with your hands on the D-line, right? Or in the secondary, misread a route and your speed can always catch up. In the NFL, everybody's good. And so that's the hardest thing is learning how to get caught up to the speed, but more importantly, shifts and formations. And, oh, man, I trust me, the game didn't slow down for me until year 3. So, I know I was out there playing, but the quicker you get out there and play, you realize – how teams want to attack you. You also get the understanding of your defense a little bit better or offense, whatever it may be. And then you just really just lean in on the guys who've been there before. Lean in on your Fred Warners and Nick Bosa's. Lean in on Trent Williams. Lean in on Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle, guys who have done it at a high level. I know when I was in my rookie year, I was lucky enough to have a Charles Woodson and a Warren Sapp and Nnamdi Asomugha. I had guys who were unbelievable football players, and I just soaked everything up like a sponge around those guys because I wanted to play right away early on. I did that, but to maintain that level of play is really how you do it. It's about being around the right guys.